Daigan. This is the little stallion pony that we just picked up as part of our Unwanted project. And I'll show you the video in a second from when I was first haltering him when I picked him up from the field. And his owner had good intentions. She got him as I think a yearling, she said. And he's a little stallion. And basically they brought him to their house and they didn't do anything with him. They didn't do any training. They didn't really do anything with him. And so apparently he's been in the field for the last year by himself. Before that he did have a friend. So for a year he's been living alone, no other horses in sight. Hasn't had his feet done in a couple years, hasn't had any vaccines, hasn't had any deworming or anything like that. So with him, it was a little tricky getting him haltered because he didn't have a lot of experience. So I ended up getting kicked during the process, and we're going to share that video with you guys. And then the trailer took a little while as well. He definitely threw a few tantrums and did not want to get on. And that's always the hardest part because we don't really have a relationship, we don't really have a rapport with them. So our goal for him is we've already booked an appointment with the vet. He's going to be going in about a week and a half. That's the earliest we could get. He's going to go to the vets, he's going to get gelded, he's going to get vaccines. So he's going to get taken care of. And then in the meantime, we're going to be working with him, practicing haltering, practicing leading, practicing all the important skills that horses really need to have to be safe to be handled around, picking up the feet, everything like that, getting him calm and trusting. And then, you know, we'll keep you filled in as to his training progress. And then we also got two other horses as well. So I'll show you guys them afterwards after you take a look at this little guy.
So here I am where Daigan is at his home facility. So I'm going in to meet him for the first time. And I know that he doesn't have a lot of training, and she told me that he hasn't really had a halter on. So I know that I've got to teach this. So even just off the bat, making motions towards him to touch him, I can see that he gets a little bit upset and he gets a little bit worried. So I want to make sure I use positive reinforcement and that I reward him for letting me touch him. So I start with those little things where I touch him and then I offer reward. And so I can see that he's pretty jumpy, he's pretty unsure. So I'm not trying to make big movements. I'm trying to be pretty telegraphing in my body as to what I'm doing. I don't want him to think that I'm up to no good. So I'm working with him and I'm giving him little scratches, and I'm showing him that if he allows me to touch him, then I offer a reward. There I'm kind of letting him see the halter, and when he touched it, again offering him a reward, because I want him to know that good things happen if you let me work with you. So there I'm just kind of trying to progress a little bit, kind of touching him a little bit, but he's totally free to move if he needs to move. If he needs to get away from me, he can. And then here I'm giving him, you know, a little bit of scratches and things like that, but still offering him a little bit of reward. And I'm trying to be attentive to when he's giving me those signs to say that it's kind of too much a little bit. So I can see that he moves away from me a little bit, and then there, that was unexpected, where you know, I just kind of caught him off guard. Like I could see that he was a little bit unsure, but I totally did not expect him to just spin around and totally kick me and like go out at me like that. So my fault for misreading him a little bit. You know, probably a little bit is, you know, me just thinking he's this cute little pony and not taking him too seriously. But then it's like, oh, okay, like, wow, you do have some serious training flaws, some serious needs here. And I was kind of, you know, we're in a bit of a time crunch. He's the third horse. We've got two other horses on the trailer. We kind of want to get the halter on and get going. And clearly I just rushed him a little bit, and he felt overwhelmed and doesn't have the training or the experience or the knowledge to be respectful and know that that kind of behavior is not acceptable. Being in that situation, I'm just kind of continuing with the positive reinforcement, but just being a little bit more aware that I may set him off, so I'm taking it a little bit slower. I can't really do anything to discipline him. Like, he spun around, he got me. It's like, you know, it's kind of too bad, so sad, because if I chase him or I try to afflict like punishment in any sort of way, then I'm going to show him that engaging in like a kicking fight with me is okay. So that time there he got overwhelmed and he spun around. I stood my ground, but he didn't kick out at me, and I just kind of asserted my energy and was like, no, this is my space. but I'm not going after him. Remember, I do still want to catch him and put a halter on him and take him with me. So I don't want to run him around in this field that I have no idea how large it is, and the fencing is wire fencing, so it's not, you know, particularly safe fencing. It's not something that you'd want to be running a horse in, but even still, that's not kind of the relationship I want to set with him. I want to set healthy boundaries, and if I start showing him that I'm going to chase and kick at him, then, especially being a stallion, he's going to want to engage in those behaviors back at me. So I'm trying to show him passive leadership and passive dominance instead, because it's just safer in general than pushing him. Because if you start with that really assertiveness, then what happens is they want to be assertive back, and you're going to get into a pushing battle. And if you're not willing to kind of fight with that, then you have to be willing to do something else. So I'm just taking it a little bit slower, still progressing with the touching and then the yes word and the treating. And it's getting better, and now I'm touching him on both sides and kind of working at progressing, and he seems relatively curious as to what's going on, which is good. And keep in mind, like, he really has hardly any handling, so there's a lot of things that, you know, would be good to teach him. You know, he's got to learn about positive reinforcement and manners and not pushing people, and obviously not kicking people either, and being haltered, and he seems to be you know, a bit head shy. And so what I did there is I slipped the halter around, because it's a fusion halter, I slipped the rope part around more the back of his neck rather than being close to his ears, so that way, you know, we don't have to deal with that today. Because you got to kind of think of priorities when you're going to pick up, you know, an unwanted project horse. It's you can't fix everything. I can't go out and do, you know, a 4-hour session and fix a bunch of these issues, or, you know, not that it's going to take 4 hours, but you can't fix everything. So you want to kind of build enough trust that you think you can get them on the trailer and get them safely home, but you don't have the luxury of fixing all of the little holes that you see along the way. But anyways, you can see we got him going.
So here I'm going to introduce you guys to our two other unwanted projects. They're two different little guys. One is, we're going to call him Neo. So all of the 3 horses that have come in for our unwanted projects for this year, we renamed them with names that mean new beginning, because we kind of feel like that's pretty fitting. And Neo is the little pinto pony. He kind of looks like a corgi horse because he looks like a horse that has no legs. And so he actually seems very sweet, and he had a very loving owner, and they bought him to be a kid's pony, but his training really not there, really spooky, scared of his own shadow. Was really spooky when we went to go pick him up. Like, I was holding a piece of paper and it was too much for him, so definitely not for a kid. And apparently he did have some issues tossing some people off. So but great loving home, really well cared for. They actually sent him with a bunch of blankets and everything else. So they're going around together. We figured they were on the trailer together for a couple hours, that maybe that they would make good buddies to introduce each other to. But anyways, he seems really sweet, and we have a video of him getting on the trailer and just showing his personality. Very skittish, but very, very sweet. So how we were just patient with him to get on the trailer. And then the other one that's going full crazy there, that is, we're gonna call her Lola. Her registered name is Southern Diva, and she is an off-the-track thoroughbred, hasn't raced for I think at least a month, and or 3 months-ish or so. And so she probably hasn't been turned out in a long time, so we've got them in the small round pen here, trying to keep her in a safe space. And she definitely seems, well, apparently she was on tranquilizer, and she should not look like she's on tranquilizer. Not right now. But we're going to do all of our calm connection exercises with her, get her really settled, get her really calm. The race owner from Fort Erie seems like a really nice guy. His other horses all really well cared for. But he didn't have a desire to sell this horse, just wanted to give her away. And when I say unwanted horses, I want to make sure I'm clear that I admire and I respect the people who give us these horses to take on as training projects, because the alternative would be, you know, these horses might go to slaughter, they might go to the auction, you might not know where they end up. And so I respect and I admire and I thank the people who give us these horses, that we can retrain them and give them an education, so that way they have their best chance at having a good home and a good life. Because if they're educated and they're calm and they're trusting people, then and they're more likely to have a good life. And then we'll keep you guys posted with their progress.